There is a seed sitting in health food stores right now, labeled as an exotic superfood, selling for $12 a pound, that once fed 20 million people across an empire larger than Rome. It contains the same complete protein profile as meat, more calcium than milk, and a single amino acid that nearly every grain on Earth is missing. The Aztecs didn't just eat it. They built temples to it, mixed it with blood in sacred ceremonies, and fed entire armies on fields that stretched to the horizon. Then, in 1577, Spanish conquistadors made it illegal to grow, punishable by death. They burned the fields. They executed farmers. They spent 300 years trying to erase it from existence, not because it was dangerous, but because it was too powerful. This is the story of Amaranth, the grain they tried to destroy, and why a $6 billion industry still doesn't want you to know what it can do. Welcome to Garden with You. The archive opens in 1519. Hernán Cortés marches into Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital. Population, 200,000, larger than any European city except Constantinople. The markets stretch for miles. But what stops the Spanish in their tracks isn't the gold or the pyramids. It's the fields. Amaranth, Huautli in Nahuatl, growing everywhere. 20,000 metric tons are harvested annually across the Aztec Empire. Not as tribute, not as a luxury, as a staple food, the foundation of civilization. The Aztecs had been cultivating amaranth for 8,000 years. Archaeological evidence from the Tehuacan Valley shows domestication dating back to 6,000 BC, roughly the same time wheat was being domesticated in the Fertile Crescent. By the time the Spanish arrived, the Aztecs had developed at least 60 varieties, each adapted to different altitudes, climates, and soils. The numbers were staggering. According to Spanish colonial records, the Aztec emperor received 200,000 bushels of amaranth annually as tribute, more than maize, more than beans. It wasn't secondary, it was central. But here's what made the Spanish uncomfortable: the ceremonies. Every year during the feast of Huitzilopochtli, Aztec priests would grind amaranth seeds into flour, mix it with honey and human blood, and mold it into figures of their gods. The entire population would gather. They would break the figures into pieces and consume them in a ritual called teocualo, the eating of the god. When Spanish priests witnessed this, they didn't see agriculture. They saw mockery, a twisted mirror of Catholic communion, bread and blood, body of the god, consumed by believers. In 1577, the Spanish crown issued the decree, growing amaranth is prohibited. Punishment, death. This wasn't about food security. This was about spiritual control. Because amaranth wasn't just food, it was identity, religion, resistance. If amaranth grew, Aztec culture survived. So they burned the fields. They slaughtered the farmers. They replaced amaranth with wheat and barley, European grains that required European agricultural knowledge, creating dependence on the colonizers. Within 50 years, amaranth cultivation in central Mexico collapsed from 20,000 metric tons annually to nearly zero. But here's what the Spanish didn't understand. You cannot kill a plant this resilient. While amaranth disappeared from official agriculture, it survived in the mountains. In remote villages across Mexico, Guatemala, and Peru, indigenous communities kept planting it in secret. Grandmothers hid seeds in corn bins. Farmers grew it in hidden plots between maize rows. The knowledge was passed in whispers, generation to generation, for 400 years. And the plant itself? It escaped into the wild. Today, Amaranthus species grow on every continent except Antarctica. Palmer amaranth, the cousin of the cultivated grain, is considered one of the most aggressive weeds in American agriculture. It develops herbicide resistance faster than almost any other plant. Farmers spend billions trying to kill it. They're fighting the same war the conquistadors fought. and they're losing. Because this is what amaranth does. It survives. Let me tell you what's in this seed, because the results explain everything. Protein, 14% by weight. Higher than wheat, higher than rice. But that's not the remarkable part. The remarkable part is lysine, the amino acid that's missing from nearly every grain on Earth. Corn is deficient in lysine. Wheat is deficient. Rice is deficient. That's why traditional diets combine grains with legumes, rice and beans, corn and beans, to create complete protein. Amaranth doesn't need that. It contains 6 to 9% lysine, 3 times more than wheat. Eat amaranth alone, and you get complete protein comparable to meat, eggs, or dairy. Calcium, 159 mg per 100 grams of grain, more than milk. The leaves contain even more, up to 410 mg per 100 gram, higher than most dairy products. Iron, 7.6 micron per 100 gram, nearly half your daily requirement from a single cup. Magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, zinc, and amaranth contain them all in bioavailable forms. But here's the nutrient that changes everything: squalene. Amaranth oil contains 8% squalene, a compound so rare that the commercial source has traditionally been shark liver. Squalene is a powerful antioxidant, skin protectant, and immune modulator. The cosmetic industry pays premium prices for it. Amaranth produces it naturally in concentrations found nowhere else in the plant kingdom. The Aztecs didn't have laboratories. They didn't need them. They knew amaranth made people stronger, healthier, and more resilient. That's why it fed armies. That's why it sustained empires. So, if amaranth is this nutritious, this resilient, this productive, why isn't it feeding the world? Because the global food system isn't built for plants like amaranth. It can't be mechanized easily. The seeds are tiny, 1 millimeter in diameter, and 1,000 seeds per gram. Modern combine harvesters, designed for wheat and corn, struggle with amaranth. You lose half the harvest to wind scatter. It can't be chemically controlled. Amaranth relatives are among the most herbicide-resistant weeds in agriculture. Palmer amaranth has developed resistance to 6 different herbicide classes. The more we try to kill it, the stronger it gets. It doesn't fit commodity agriculture. Wheat and corn are subsidized, standardized, commodified. Global infrastructure exists to process them. Amaranth requires different milling, different baking techniques, and different supply chains. Most importantly, you can save the seeds. Every amaranth plant produces 50,000 to 500,000 seeds. Harvest once, and you have enough to plant next year, plus enough to eat, plus enough to share. No annual seed purchase, no patented genetics, no corporate dependence. In a food system built on selling inputs, seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, every year, forever, a plant that propagates itself for free is a threat. So, amaranth remains exotic, niche, and expensive. Sold in health food stores for $12 a pound, while corn, subsidized and commodified, sells for $0.15 a pound. The ban ended centuries ago, but the suppression never stopped. It just became economic. While amaranth faded in Mexico, it thrived elsewhere. In India, they call it Rajgira, the king's grain. It's eaten during religious fasts, considered pure and sacred. You can buy it in every market. In Nepal and Tibet, they call it latte. Traditional porridge, roasted flour, ceremonial food. In Peru, kiwicha, the Quechua name, never disappeared. The Inca cultivated it alongside quinoa. In the Andes, you can still find 70-year-old women harvesting amaranth the way their grandmothers did. In East Africa, amaranth leaves are sold as machicha, a premium vegetable richer in nutrients than spinach or kale. In China, multiple species have been cultivated for over 400 years. They call it yin choy, and it's a staple green vegetable. What happened wasn't global forgetting. It was selective amnesia. The West erased amaranth from its consciousness while the rest of the world kept eating. But something is changing. In 1975, a researcher at Rodale Institute named John Robson started collecting amaranth varieties from around the world. He grew them in Pennsylvania, tested yields, and analyzed nutrition. His work caught attention. In 1977, the National Academy of Sciences published a report titled Underexploited Tropical Plants with Promising Economic Value. Amaranth made the list. NASA got interested. In the 1980s, they researched amaranth for space missions, high nutrition, high yield, edible leaves and seeds, and fast growth. A perfect candidate for feeding astronauts on long missions. By the 1990s, health food stores started carrying it. By the 2000s, athletes discovered it. Complete protein, no gluten, easy to digest. Today, global amaranth production is growing 5% annually. It's not mainstream yet, but it's returning because the conditions that made amaranth essential 500 years ago are coming back. Wheat is vulnerable. Corn is vulnerable. Every monoculture grain feeding 8 billion people was bred for stability, for predictable rainfall, consistent temperatures, and industrial inputs. The climate doesn't cooperate anymore. Amaranth was bred for chaos. It survives in drought. It tolerates heat up to 40 degrees, 104 degrees. It grows in poor soil where wheat fails. Some varieties mature in 45 days, fast enough for 2 harvests per season. And unlike most crops, amaranth improves in elevated CO2. Higher carbon dioxide increases its photosynthetic efficiency. The atmosphere that's killing wheat makes amaranth stronger. For 300 years, we suppressed the grain that could feed us through the crisis we're entering. Now, as industrial agriculture strains under climate pressure, the answer has been waiting in the same mountains where indigenous farmers kept it alive. Here's the practical part. 1. Learn to recognize it. Tall plant, 3-8 feet. Dense flower spikes, red or gold. Leaves often purple-tinged. Tiny seeds, 1 millimeters, cream to black in color. 2. Buy whole grain amaranth, not amaranth flour. Not processed, whole seeds. Check Indian grocery stores, Rajgira, Latin markets, Alegria, or health food stores. Should cost $4 to $8 per pound, not $12. 3. Cook it properly. 1 cup amaranth, 2.5 cups water, simmer 20 minutes, becomes porridge-like. Toast first for nutty flavor. Mix with other grains, 3.1 ratio, for lighter texture. Pop it like popcorn for snacks. 4. Grow it if you can. 1 plant, 50,000 plus seeds, grows in poor soil, needs full sun, minimal water, harvest when seed heads dry and seeds fall easily. Save seeds for next year. 5. Eat the leaves. Young amaranth leaves are more nutritious than spinach. Cook them the same way. If you see amaranth growing wild, confirm species first. Harvest the top 6 inches before flowering. The Spanish burned the fields for 300 years. They executed farmers. They rewrote history. They tried to erase amaranth from existence. But seeds don't forget. Hidden in mountains, carried by grandmothers, scattered by wind across continents, amaranth waited. Through prohibition, through colonization, through industrial agriculture's attempts to homogenize food into a commodity, it survived. Now, as the climate shifts and industrial grains struggle, as people search for nutrition beyond corporate supply chains, as food sovereignty becomes survival, amaranth returns, not as exotic a superfood, not an ancient curiosity, as it always was, the grain that feeds empires, the seed that survives conquest, the food that asks for nothing and gives everything. This is amaranth, the grain they tried to destroy, the knowledge they spent centuries suppressing, the sacred seed that refused to die. This knowledge is not lost. It's germinating. If this video exposed something for you, subscribe to Garden With You and hit the bell. Every like and share preserves what they tried to erase.